Greetings! It's a Hill Farmstead Saison. Always a very fun, satisfying thing to drink. And today it's Florence. This is their wheat Saison that is slightly lactic. Apparently, they don't really give you any information about it on the label, but at the brewery it said that there will be a lactic acid presence in there, even though they just say, our farmhouse yeast like they do with all the other Saisons. And there's no Brettanomyces or anything supposedly in this beer. Just some kind of mixed culture in there, I guess. And some reviews I've read have said, yeah, it was pretty darn tart, which is different from most of their other Saisons that don't have any lactic acid happening. It's 5% alcohol. It was bottled exactly 2 months ago. And I've never had this before. Florence. And I'm looking very forward to it. They use American and European hops, it says in there, but there's no dry hopping or anything. Just a wheat Saison. I mean, mostly barley, but I don't think they use a good amount of wheat in most of their Saisons, but this one does use Vermont wheat, it says on there. And actually the Vermont wheat is listed after the hops, so I guess maybe they use less wheat by weight than hops in this beer, though I'm not expecting it to be super hoppy or anything. Ooh, and I've had it in the fridge for many days and it's starting to foam up a little bit. You might see in there. It looks like it's going to be very carbonated, which with some wild ales you might expect, but not necessarily an acidic, just acidic ale that's without wild yeast influence. It's not too carbonated though. It poured without a lot of head, but it's a pretty nice looking head, slightly bubbly. The bubbles are kind of falling apart, so yeah, there's probably some acidity happening. And I smelled a little bit of a tartness happening already in there too. Ooh, yeah. Though the Saison aroma is very strong still. It's got the very slight pear, banana, and slight grassiness to it also. The clove and pepper are dialed down. It's a very traditionalist Saison yeast, as I kind of expected. It's more like the DuPont style, where it's not big explosion of banana and too much clove. It's more pepper, pear, I would say, which I like quite a bit. It doesn't smell like tropical fruit juice. It's not going to be a big fruity, malty experience, I'm sure. And just a little bit of a lemony acid tinge, definitely, that is there. But it blends in pretty well with the Saison aroma. It doesn't take away from it. I wonder what would happen if you age this beer significantly. You'd probably lose some of that Saison-y spice, and the lactic part would take over. It's probably good to be drinking this fresh, at least that's what I think, especially because after several days in the fridge, it's still foamed up. So there's probably still some active yeast in there. Bottle conditioned, just like all the Hill Farmstead bottles. And the head has died down, so it's probably going to be some acidity. But it's definitely not overtaking the aroma. Ooh, yeah, firm. Firm sourness. It's not too sharp, a little sharp, metallic, but it fades away like most lactic acid will. Yeah, it's kind of like a Berliner Weisse type of sourness. Pretty mouth-watering. It's like a tart pear. Sort of green apple-y, but there's too much like sort of farmy, dry pear skin, almost hay flavors happening for it to just be a simple sort of green apple flavor. And a little bit lemony, but I really like that they have a firm tartness to this beer, but it's not overtaking everything. Like I've had you know, plenty of dry hop sours and other sour beers where the lactic character has just overwhelms everything else that's happening in the beer. And I definitely noticed some herbal, grassy elements from the hopping. That's really nice, and it matches up a little bit with that lemony flavor. It makes it kind of like an overly lemon juiced tea in a way. Real refreshing and pretty light body and dry. I can definitely see orange peel and coriander fitting well in this beer. But it's definitely complex as it is right now. It doesn't need any more fruit or anything added to it. I like it quite a bit. It pulls off the Saison flavors really well, along with the sourness. But it is pretty sharp and sour. Like, if you're not into sour beers, you probably won't be much of a fan of this one. Definitely more sour than the Dorothy, which is their Brettanomyces one that has a little bit of a tartness, but the lactic character is out in the forefront of this beer. Definitely no Brettanomyces happening though, which makes this pretty unique because there aren't so many Saisons out there that are sour but don't have Brettanomyces presence in them also, or they don't have their like sourness derived from some sort of aging with Brettanomyces, especially in oak barrels. I don't know if I've had, yeah, the closest thing I've had to this was some slightly sour Belgian white ales. But those ones, of course, have the added fruit and spice to it, which this one is doing a great job without. It's still got all the fruit and spice from the Saison yeast. It isn't exactly my super favorite style. Like maybe a couple years ago, I would have been, you know, going crazy for this. It's really well done, and it's actually really perfect for a midsummer beer. I'm glad that I have it right now. But I'm looking really forward to trying their really traditional Saisons, because I had their Brett one. I'm trying their lactic one, and they're pretty darn good. This might even have more of the traditional Saison yeast elements than Dorothy, their Brettanomyces one, because Brettanomyces can really take over a beer really quickly. Yeah, this one, yeah, the finish isn't too lemony and sour. You kind of get used to the acidity, but it is mouth-watering and slightly puckering. It's I might even call this like a Saison Berliner Weisse hybrid, especially because it has that added wheat in there that brings out a kind of a Berliner Weisse flavor. But I'm going to share this with one of my sour loving friends, and she's probably going to love this beer. And it's really good, but it doesn't reach a pinnacle of complexity. The different elements combine really well, but it's not really taking it over the top. I'm really glad that I have this beer, and I'm enjoying it a lot, but it's not something that's going to be over like a 90 rating, I guess. I'd give it a solid 86 or something, 87, or basically what it's rated on Untappd, I think, which is almost 4.3 or something like that. Yeah, so we'll do a 4 or 86 or whatever you want to call it for Hill Farmstead Florence. Goodbye.